Hello everyone and welcome to the second episode of A Complete History of Isavar. I'm your host LK and today we're going to be covering everything in Isavar between episodes 45 and 47. Like usual, if you're watching during the premiere, please ask me any questions you may have in the chat right now. And of course, if you're watching this after the premiere, please do ask me questions in the comments down below. So this time we're actually trying a slightly different script style, so really it's just bullet points of what I need to cover and I'll try to expand on them, so it's hopefully makes it sound like I'm not just reading from a script in monotone. At least that's how I feel it is when I'm reading from a script during editing. So with that out of the way, let's get right into it. So starting off with Isavar 45, this video really was centered around finishing off some of the final details in Zalaridge. We did not get everything done, but we did get enough of it done to make it presentable. This video was mainly working on the wall and some of the road details in the residential area. Now, like I said, we didn't really finish it, but we did get to the point where it's presentable for the world tour. And the lore in this was a quick overview of the different species we have in Isavar. It's really just something that we're going to be expanding on this channel a lot more in the future. After we get some of that more worked out. So it was really just giving a ton of brief descriptions without a lot of detail inside of it, and the sort of document that we were reading was from a human or elvish scholar's point of view, which means that it wasn't like, this is here how it is, was more of this is what they know at a certain time. And yeah, so basically the entire thing with this lore is we'll have a more in-depth version on this channel. It just needs to be worked out a little bit first. Now in Isavar 46 we built up the small village of Fallisvale. So Fallisvale is built around the Fallis Reservoir. It's basically founded and is the home of some of the Fallis's best engineers, the people who basically work on the reservoir and aqueduct system that provides Fallis with its water. And like usual, when we do small village projects like this, the lore in this video was basically around the founding and creation of Fallisvale itself. So Fallisvale's build style was created to be slightly different than Fallis's. Basically, it just took the sandstone aspects and added a bit more detail and depth and just color and whatnot into the build. So the buildings themselves were placed randomly around with the intention of kind of making the road cramped at some points. So that way it kind of gives the feeling of random, just sporadic. This was built up not necessarily by the most thoughtful planners for the town. It was basically just built up by people who wanted to live there. Just as a small village, it isn't necessarily a city. And in this video, we also worked up on building a temporary mob farm off camera. My plan for this is to AFK at it for a while, get a ton of resources, so that way we can figure out where we want our permanent mob farm to be in the world once we update to 1.17, in which when we do that, we will clear the chunks that it is in, basically just removing the farm, but we can still AFK at it until then, because there's quite a while until 1.17, because at least for me, it hasn't been announced when it's going to be live just yet. And so next up we have Isavar 47. So this video, we actually spent 2 weeks on it. Now that is also the reason why there's only 3 videos being covered in today's edition of A Complete History of Isavar rather than the 4 that we're hopefully going to be able to get to in the next edition. So during these 2 weeks, we went through a slight channel rebrand on pretty much all of my channels. The main channel name changed from LKK Plays to LK with 2 Ys. And the Twitch changed from LKK Plays to I'm LK, basically spelled the same way as the main channel, just with I'm in front of it. We also went end raiding during stream during these 2 weeks, and so here is some of the best loot that we got on screen. This isn't all of it, but it's really just the good stuff, because I figured it wasn't important enough to figure out how to put all this stuff into a chest when a lot of it was just garbage that you just get from end raiding usually. Now the video itself focused on building up Greyhold Fort, one of the military forts within Zagala. So Greyhold Fort is the home of the Greyhold Defense Division, naturally as they share a name, which is one of Zagala's 5 military divisions. Now this one is one of the ones that isn't stationed in a city, as obviously this isn't a city, it's a specific dedicated fort for military activity. And the fort itself's design is very, very similar to Zalaridge. I basically just copied Zalaridge, but modified it slightly. So the outer walls are the exact same as Zalaridge's outer walls. And then the outer buildings, that is the one that aren't the tower, are actually almost identical to Zalaridge's, with the slight exception that they're built into the outer wall slightly, which is something I didn't do in Zalaridge. So they're kind of different, but realistically the build style is pretty much the same. Now, my main focus for Greyhold Fort was the central tower, and so it's really meant to be a multi-purpose tower. It's meant to be a lookout tower in times of peace and in times of war, and basically it's just there to see if there's any invading armies or anything's going on in the area, so that way they can deal with those things. And then the roof serves as an extra point to help defend the fort from attacks. Now, the catapult that it has up there is sort of a test for the Zagalian government to see if they want to use as experimental ammunition. Now, it's really just netherrack and magma blocks, but the reason I say experimental is because in Isavar, they are really sort of new to exploring the nether and all of the things inside of it, at least in Zagala, because that's all we've been working on so far. And then also on top of the tower, there is a signifier to let Vasten and all others know that everything is fine and the fort is operational as long as the smoke is lit. So basically, if the smoke wasn't lit, those places like Vasten would know that, hey, maybe we should start moving or send the signal down to the other military divisions that there could be something wrong with Greyhold Fort. So this tower does actually have an interior, which is very odd compared to most of my other builds. I typically don't build interiors for them, at least right away, except for a couple. The reason I did this was because I had 2 weeks to do it, and I had a little bit of extra time for this video, but also because it really helped reinforce the fact that it was a military fort, because inside of it we have barracks for soldiers, we have an armory that also doubles as storage for other resources, and then the general that commands the division's quarters, or basically controls the entire division from there. Then, as I've sort of mentioned already, the distance between Vasten and the fort itself is not very great. They're actually pretty close to each other. So now we're going to be moving into our future Isavar plan segment. This is a new segment for these videos, and basically it's for me to explain to you my current plans of what's going to be done within the videos we'll be covering next time. So you already know what happens in Isavar 48 because you've already seen it. However, because we're not covering it in this video, we won't really be talking about it until the next edition of this series. So let's get started with Isavar 49. It will basically be an addition of details along the roads throughout Zagala. So basically the part between Zalaridge and Phallus that is on screen, I might try to do something in here, and then the plains between Zalaridge and Vasten, again on screen right now, there should be something going on in here. Now all this is a very minimum and may or may not happen. I've actually already started working on this video, and I'm not fully sure if we're going to be able to get to everything, but those are my current plans, and of course you will know next week when we get to Isavar 49. And of course, after Isavar 49, we have Isavar 50, which will be, of course, the world tour. Basically, it's also going to be celebrating 1 year on YouTube and 1 year of working in Isavar. So I will be joined by a guest for that video. I already know who that is, but I won't be telling you until that video because I have to keep something a secret, and it's really not that big of a secret. But hey, I'm gonna act like it is. And so it's gonna be a complete full tour, meaning that I'm gonna bring this guest through every single thing I've done in Isavar, and basically my editing for that is going to be still entertaining, so we're not gonna be walking through the entire thing unedited. But I will be trying to make sure that it's still entertaining. We get the general world tour that's basically here are the important things and not just the walking along the paths talking about different things. I may include some of that, not fully sure just yet. Now, I do want to mention that I will not be limiting Isavar 50 to any length. I'm going to be trying to keeping it under like 20 minutes because I don't really want to go past that. But if, say, it has to be 22 minutes or something like that, in order to get the full world tour, I will be doing that. And of course, if it's going to be 10 minutes, which I highly doubt it would be, it'll be like that as well. Those are just some examples, probably pretty extreme. Most likely I'll be around 15 minutes, but I'm not fully sure and don't want to limit myself to anything. And we will also be trying to cover a lot of the lore in the world during the world tour, because that's actually a pretty important part of Isavar. It's arguably the most important part, so I have to try to include it. And then there are also my plans for after Isavar 50, which are basically just to work within Zagala until we update to 1.17. Now, updating to 1.17 will happen when the replay mod is available for 1.17, so hopefully not too long after it is released. Now, after 1.17 and we update to it, whenever that is, we are going to be working on some more farms. And by that I mean, first we're going to be starting with a Guardian farm, because we need that for our next city project, which we'll be talking about in just a second. And we will also be probably working on the Wither Skull farms, other things like that, that are just general necessities that we really need in the world, just to be able to get some more resources a bit easier. And I did just mention we're going to be working on another city, which is a little bit of a deviation from what I was originally going to do. The reason we're doing this is because I think I've come up with a way to keep myself motivated for working on cities. So we're going to have several projects we're working on, and we're not going to try to get the city done before episode 75, which will be the next world tour, but instead we're going to be trying to just get as much done as we can. And I believe this city is going to have somewhat of a custom terrain, maybe not fully, but I do want to have some mountains and whatnot in it. And it's also going to have 3 or 4, I think 5 actually, 4 or 5 different build styles. They're going to be similar to each other, but just slightly different enough that they should be different to build and don't burn you out on it. Now, I should also mention this is going to be the first time in a city I'm going to be working with full diagonal builds. If you don't know what that means, I'll probably have something up on screen showcasing it right now. And while we're working on that, I'm not quite sure what we're also going to be working on. I still need to make the decision on working on a custom mountain project or waiting for 1.18 for that, because the custom mountain will be the area of the dwarves, and I'm not fully sure if I want to use the cave gen for that, which I'll probably end up waiting for it. But if we don't work on that, we will have 1 or 2 other projects, most likely regarding the Guardian farm, because I have some ideas for how to make that look better. But basically, we're going to be working on more than just a city to keep motivation and all those things for the series. So yeah, basically just working on multiple projects, including our next city. So yeah, that's really it for A Complete History of Isavar 2. If you enjoyed this new style, liked it more, liked the other one more, please do let me know, because I would love to incorporate your feedback for the next one. Hopefully the next one will be actually 4 videos from that month, and we'll hopefully have that. I don't plan on skipping out an Isavar video for a while, so hopefully we'll be able to do that. And with that, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do consider leaving a like rating, and if you're not already, please do consider subscribing. And I should be live over on twitch.tv/I'mLK. Link will be up on screen, description, pinned comment, all that stuff. But yes, I have been your host, LK. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.